Well, hey, Dave Melinda here, Positive Polarity Podcast. Hope things are going awesome for you this week. Hey, if you're a guy, you love to crack codes. And I found a guy that's going to help us crack a pretty important code. And I want to start with a question because I love thinking about this. And the question is, what's your edge? What is it that you have that's what's your edge? What's your superpower? I don't know what words work. He used edge, so I'm going to stick with that. And I'm probably going to mess up his name. I already said that in advance, but I'm honored to be hanging out with Babs Faseesin. How are you today, sir?
Hey Dave, I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you
Absolutely.
for the amazing job you're doing with the podcast.
Oh, for sure. Thank you. Thank you so much. You are founder of Cracking the Life Code. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a code involved, life's involved, we're cracking stuff. So this is like all good. So fill us in on what's going on at Cracking the Life Code these days.
Well, listen, we're in the numbers world, we're in the jet world. It's all technology now, and so everyone's cracking code. That's true, absolutely. Cracking the Life Code really is a community of people who are looking to become 1% better each day. We are focused on total life mastery, understanding the key areas of life and constantly growing in those key areas of life. We do this by sessions, coaching, conferences, networking events, and the likes. Essentially, it's just people of like mind who just come together to enjoy time together and inspire each other to become better versions of ourselves.
And that's got to start. That's awesome. And that's got to start with kind of a self-awareness, I'm assuming then, right? Because I may say, I'm fine. I don't need that. I don't need to get 1% better every day. I'm perfect the way I am, or, whatever comes into an entrepreneur's or business owner's mind. So, Babs, how do you like work with that? Somebody that doesn't understand that piece, is there kind of a unveiling that has to happen, or how do you start that?
You're right, actually. There definitely needs to be some self-awareness before we even get to that point where we want to focus on becoming 1% better. Here's the thing, whether or not we like it, everyone that exists here on Earth lives by a code. Codes are exactly just systems of beliefs. They are behaviors, they are habits by which we live our lives. Unfortunately, a lot of people live by these codes, but then do not have a say in the codes by which they live their lives. But why this is important for everyone to do is you want to be in control of everything that governs your life. So you want to be in control of the system of beliefs. You want to be in control of your behaviors and your habits, so you can channel your energy and your passion towards the direction of your purpose, so you can ultimately live that flourishing and very successful life. Now, not a lot of people understand that at some point in life we would have to sit and ask the questions like, am I really moving in the direction that I really want to go in life? What area of my life needs to be worked on, improved, maybe accelerated where necessary? And then when we sit and reflect sometimes, and you're right, really, a lot of people spend a lot of time on other issues and other topics and other people, and not a lot of people spend a chunk of time thinking about their lives or self reflecting, about their life. So we spend a lot of time with other people. We don't spend a lot of time, enough time with ourselves. And when we do, that's when we realize areas of our lives where we need to move the needle a little bit. You could be doing excellently in business, but how are you doing in career? How are you doing in finances? How are you doing in relationship? How are you doing spiritually? How are you doing in health and wellness? How are you doing in your personal growth journey? These are areas of life where we would always constantly want to move the wheel to see what area needs some balance in. And that's when you realize, yes, I probably got some work to do in one area of life.
Well, and I think, I mean, that's so funny because as entrepreneurs and business owners, we are all going so fast all the time. So, when some guy comes along and says, slow down a little bit, take some inventory of yourself. I mean, I don't know about you, but get people a lot that say, hey, fix my team. There's problems on my team, right? Or fix my company, fix my customer, whatever. It's not a lot that you get people that have this, hey, I really need help personally, right? Or I need to improve this about myself. I'm aware of that. So is it, I think of like the victim versus the victor thing, right? Where it's easy to blame. I don't have any control over myself. It's all outward control. I'm assuming that you kind of start there with people and say, hey, you do have control. You do have a say in the code that you're talking about. I love that you said that before. So what code? I mean, is there a simple way to define this life code that you're referring to?
Yeah, I mean, I have ultimately, you know, I have crystallized life codes into three simple things. They are mindsets, habits, and behaviors.
Okay.
I think these three fundamentally underpin the way we live our lives. So our lives are predominantly governed by our mindsets, our habits, and our behaviors. So if we are able to build or first crack the negative codes and then replace them with positive, strong, empowering codes, then we're able to move our lives from where we are to where we probably desire to be.
And that brings up a question. Do people really know where, I mean, are there a lot of people, Babs, that know where they want to be? Or if you ask them, they're just like oblivious because they've never really stopped long enough to think about where do you really want to be? I mean, if you ask that to most people, do they have a pretty clear idea? Or is it just, I just want to get through today and, get home and have a beer or whatever, right? Is that what you're kind of seeing, or where do you, with the people you run into, do they have a pretty crystallized vision of where they want to be?
Honestly, well, some people do, not a lot of them, but most people don't. If you ask an entrepreneur, where do you want to be? They might say, I want to make my next million, or
Yeah,
I want to make my next billion,
yeah,
depending on where they are in their journey. And my experience with speaking with entrepreneurs is they often define where they're going by the next amount of money they want to make. But then,
that's intense
um,
right there, eh?
Exactly. That they're right in there. You could tell that there's probably a bit of, misinformation or maybe lack of clarity as to where they need to be going, what they need to be thinking. And ultimately, really, it comes down to making more money for entrepreneurs. But there's so much more to life than
Yeah,
making money. And in fact, you need the right mindsets. You need the right habits, and you
yeah,
need the right behaviors to make the money that you are thinking about. So
sure.
ultimately, I guess it's focusing on the wrong thing, maybe at the right time. So we need a shift in the mindset so we can focus on the right things in the right time.
Yeah. And I think mindset and habit and behaviors are three really powerful keys that, if done right, that does that become your edge that you talked about? Like, what is your edge? Is that really what our edge is the right mindset and the right habits and then the right behaviors? Is that kind of how that works?
Essentially, I think yes. I mean, all through history, of all the inventions of humankind, nothing has been created that was more powerful than the human mind. I think if you want to change the trajectory of a man's life, you need to first start by changing their mindset. So I believe fundamentally that for anyone to succeed in anything at all, the first point of call is a mindset. When we're able to, adopt a mindset that leads to success, then we commence the journey of success. And then we can build behaviors and habits that reinforce that mindset.
So where does mindset really start? I mean, I try to think about that. Is it how I think of myself? Is it how I think of others? Is how I think of my work? I mean, is there a certain list of mindsets that I have to kind of work through, or how do you start that mindset piece for somebody that really this is new to them?
So there are so many times I think a lot of this will be done in the place of reflection, self-reflection. When we think deeply about our lives and the experiences that we've been through. Ask yourself realistic questions like, when that opportunity came my way, why did I pass on that opportunity? Why do I develop cold feet when something massive is about to happen in my life? Why do I say no when it looks like an opportunity is so big? Why do I think of myself so little when I'm in a big pond, in a big ocean? Why? So when you start asking these probing questions, you might begin to find that there are certain mindsets that surround your behavior or your choices as you confront different experiences in life. So some people might say, well, nobody ever made $1 million in my family. Why should I try? You
Mm.
know, some people might say, nobody ever went to college in my family. Why should I try? And there's so many other mindsets that way. But the way to figure that out is to ask questions. So ask yourself questions. Why did I choose this direction versus the other direction? Why did I avoid risk in this situation? And what could have been my reward had I taken the risk? Why am I so averse to risk taking? And also, when we begin to probe that way, it might open up our minds and our eyes to see areas of our lives where our mindsets are playing a significant role.
So if somebody's doing that, if they're listening right now and they're thinking, they start probing that stuff a little bit, it answers don't just like pop into your head and then it's solved, right? I mean, there's kind of like this process. And so I try to encourage people, and I want your feedback on, if it doesn't come right away, what do I do, Babs? I mean, if I sit with myself, I can see an entrepreneur going, I am so busy, but okay, I'm going to give this 10 minutes, and they want everything to come down in 10 minutes. And, 3 minutes into it, they're already going, checking their email and stuff like that. I mean, it's hard to chunk this out. So it takes time, right? I'm assuming there's time involved to kind of, process this information.
That's exactly true. I mean, that's why we have a community like Cracking the Life Code community. Sometimes we're not able to figure this out on our own. And so we need the help of a coach who could
Sure.
guide us through a very systematic approach, sometimes scientific approach, that could lead us towards the answers to these questions, or maybe even help us ask the right questions, because sometimes that's the problem. We're not even asking the right questions. So with the help of a coach or a community like Kraken Life Code, we're able to meet other people who either have businesses in the same industry or are entrepreneurs like yourself, and you can interact with them and see maybe they've been where you are today, and you're looking to be like them tomorrow. You can share ideas, and they can in that conversation, ideas can pop up in our minds.
I mean, I think about, I guess I wrote down limiting thinking. I mean, there's thoughts in my head that can limit my success, or that's the mindset there that, like you said, nobody in my family's ever done X, whatever X is. So therefore, that's kind of a limiting belief. And so it seems like that's where you start. You kind of combat that to really help people break through that. That's really where we start then, correct?
That's right. These limiting beliefs essentially hold us back. Um, and very often we don't even know they are limiting
Mm.
beliefs. And so I guess through the course of this self-reflection, we can identify these beliefs and understand clearly, probably ask questions like, are these beliefs really hindering me, or are they helping me? If we realize that these beliefs hold us back, then we begin the journey of cracking those beliefs and putting them down, and then finding positive beliefs to replace these old beliefs that we're letting go of.
Gotcha. And I think that they're kind of blind spots, right? We might not know we have them. And so I want to give people a kind of a get out of jail free card that are listening. That's not your fault. And so now we're at that spot where don't look back and worry about all the stuff you missed. You kind of have to look forward and start afresh, and then work on that mindset piece moving forward. How do we transition from that mindset piece into the habit piece, your second piece there for your edge?
I mean, habits we're creatures of habits in general. And primarily our mindset underpins our habits. So when we believe that anything is possible, our habits reinforce that belief. So the habit is a physical expression of the mindset that a person has. So if a person believes that nothing is impossible, they'll get up every day and they'll confront their fears. But if a person believes the other way around, that nothing is possible, you might not find them getting out of bed every day. So our habits are a physical expression, and the actions that we take that reinforces what our beliefs are, and our beliefs ultimately fit into our habits. So they're interconnected. Because you can't see beliefs, they're internal, right? You're in the mind. You can't see them, but an action can tell you what a person believes. So habits are the expressions of the mind.
Wow. So there it's a unique definition of habits, because I was thinking completely different. So we're trying whatever your mindset is usually followed by a habit. So if you have a habit that you're not comfortable with, is it safe to say, Babs, that is then because of the mindset? I mean, if you flip that around, is that really how this works?
There's potentially a mindset behind every habit. It's the same for behavior. There's potentially a mindset that moves you in the direction of a certain habit. So, for instance, a typical example would be, say, hitting the snooze button every morning. And so you ultimately become late. You get late to work every day because you don't wake up early enough to go to work. That's a simple behavior. The habit is you're perpetually late. The behavior is you hit the snooze button. And then the mindset probably is that I just don't need to. I don't need to go to bed early. I don't need to, nobody tells me what I do. I can go to bed whatever time I want. That's the mindset. But then the behavior is I hit the snooze button every day. And then the habit is ultimately I become perpetually a late person at work. So all three are connected. So if a person behaves a certain way or has a certain habits, chances are it's underpinned by a certain mindset. And so if we're able to shift the mindset, that can ultimately impact the behavior.
Wow. Mindset, habits, and behaviors. Never knew how closely aligned those were together with each other. So thanks for sharing that. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Awesome. Well, thank you for that. That's so cool. So you have these pillars of purpose, and I've never heard pillars of purpose. I love purpose, wrote a book called Growing on Purpose because I've seen so many companies grow by mistake. So kind of help us, with what are the 4 pillars of purpose that you're referring to in your book?
Well, in my book, Cracking the Life Code, I did talk about pillars of purpose, haven't fully extensively talked about purpose. The first one is passion. Um, think about think about purpose as a car. If you imagine you had a car and you had a destination to get to, uh, passion is the fuel that helps you get to your destination. Passion is the fuel that keeps you going. Passion is what drives you in the direction of your purpose. That's why it's important for us to channel our passion in the direction of our purpose. So passion is that fuel, is that thing that keeps us going against all odds. Another killer is platform. And so a platform is the road that we travel on to the journey of purpose. So if you think about passion as fuel, platform is the road that you travel on. So I like to say that impact is limited when purpose is invisible. Impact is limited when purpose is invisible. In other words, it's important for purpose to be visible so you can increase the impact that you make. Now, you would be able to influence a lot of people if you have the visibility for your purpose. If your purpose is known to so many people, I often give this example of so before reality television, there were no ways, no easier ways of identifying talents across the world. So there were so many people who probably had fantastic voices, who could cook absolutely amazing meals and all of that, but they could not be discovered because there was no platform like the American Idol to
Sure.
discover these great talents. So I like to say that platform becomes a significant pillar of fulfilling purpose because it helps you to create visibility for your purpose.
Mm.
Another
Wow.
pillar, another pillar is people. So
Okay.
if passion is the fuel and platform is the road, people are like feelers to the porthole on the road to success. People are like feelers to the porthole on the road to success. Think about the road to success having so many potholes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, people help you fill those potholes so you can have a smoother, easier, and maybe faster journey. So we would always need people, and that's why we are not built to live in isolation. We are connected. We're built to live in a community of people with people, and so people often enhance. They lift your hands up. You might sometimes even fly on the wings of people. You might need someone to open the door for you. You might need someone to make a call somewhere. But there's always room to use people as fillers for those potholes so you can have a smoother and a faster and easier ride to your destination of purpose.
Wow.
And the last one is place. Essentially, place really is, I believe that animals, humans naturally flourish in their place of natural habitat. And so birds typically flourish in the air. So do fish, and fish flourish in the water. So if you pick a beautiful fish in water and you slap the fish on the ground, the fish, which typically was a very beautiful animal in water, becomes an object of pity,
Mm.
on soil
Yep.
because it's not in its natural habitat. I think for us to flourish, either as entrepreneurs or as people in general, we need to flourish in the place of our purpose, in the place of our natural habitat, our area of strength, the place that really provides the resources for us to flourish. Not everybody would flourish in the Midwest. Not everybody can flourish in the South.
Sure.
You've got to find. And then someone might also say to me, "Hey, are you saying I need to move?" Maybe not.
Sure.
Maybe not. In some cases, this location or this place is not exactly physical. It's more mental. It's a mental space. You need to be in a certain mental space to be able to move your business from point A to point B. And the question is, where is the mind space? Where is the space, the head space that I need to be able to scale this business from $1 million business to a $5 million business? That's what I'm talking about here. It's a space in the mind where you need to be before you can physically move your business from where it's at today to where you want it to be.
Wow. So passion, platform, people, and place, the four pillars of purpose. Now, I have a question about the first one because there's a lot of people that don't really have a passion for what they do. I mean, it's foreign to some of us that have kind of been fortunate our whole life to be able to really love what they do. I mean, what do you tell somebody that, because, I was talking to somebody not too long ago and they said, who really loves their job? I mean, it's a place you show up, you do your job, and you go home. That's why we call it work. And it's like, really, I wasn't going to get into it with them at that point. But I'm just curious, Babs, from your perspective, for somebody that's listening, that may not really have a passion for their job, their company, whatever, their lot in life, they're not passionate about. What's your suggestion? What do you tell them if they confide that in you?
Honestly, my recommendation is that they find something they are passionate about and do it. Life's too short to to do a job 9 to 5, whatever hours, where we're frustrated, we're unhappy, and probably sometimes insecure. it's not worth it. I think the best thing we could do for ourselves and our minds is to find areas, something that we're passionate about. Someone might, and I know the question will come up. The question is, well, my passion cannot pay my bills. And I know sometimes some people might come up with that. I've heard that a few times, but just let me land this. Um, Life's too short to be in a miserable job. Life's too short to be at a place, at a job where you don't like. Listen, we spend a lot of time on the job. And
Right.
so if we're going to spend a lot of our lives, which I interpret time as life, because I often say time wasters are life wasters. Okay,
Sure.
so if you're giving a lot of your time, which is the chunk of your life, to a job, an employer, it better be one that you really love, or something you're passionate about. And if
Yeah.
you don't, I usually would encourage people to, while still at that job, find something else that they love and they're passionate about, and they can. And then at the end of the day, if you're not able to find yourself a platform or a job or something that you like, honestly, there's nothing wrong with creating one.
Mm.
There's nothing wrong with creating one. Every great company we have today started as someone's dream. And
Sure.
so you could also be a creator of a job. You could be a creator of a platform. If what you're looking for does not currently exist, you could be the first person to create it.
Wow, that's awesome. And I'm just curious. I want to dig a little deeper on that because if they're listening and they say, I'm understanding you, but you know what? I can't find something, Babs, that I'm passionate about. I mean, where do you go? What do you do if you're in that spot? Because I'm sure there's someone listening right now that's in that spot and they were hoping that we'd ask this question because they may have sat down, they may have did a list, they may have looked at a blank sheet of paper for who knows how long trying to write things, right? What, because there are people that are just in that spot. They haven't really had that self-awareness that we talked about before. Where do you go if I was saying, Babs, I don't know what I'm passionate about? What would you
I
tell
mean,
them?
frankly, coaches have helped a lot of people identify some of this. And really, we walk through the entire life's journey. And as we walk through the entire life's journey, we identify things, and areas where these individuals have been very excited and very passionate in the past, and we're able to pull those out of them. So a coach, a life coach, could be a very good resource to use in that situation. Another one would be just reading books, because some people might say, well, I cannot afford a life coach at this point in my life when I don't even know what I'm passionate about. Well, you can read books. There's so many books that open your mind to even just self-reflection. There are books that can just one sentence. I often say to myself when I pick up a new book, like, what's the chapter that I need from this book to turn either my life, my mindset, my behavior around? What's that one light bulb moment I need from this 400-page book?
Sure.
So yeah, that might be you. You might just hit one phrase, one sentence, one paragraph that would, just that would connect all the dots for you, and then you'll find passion. But honestly, I think that there's something everyone's passionate about. It's just we haven't done a lot of work to dig within and find. For some people, it's sports. Have you seen people who talk about sports all day and they're never tired
Yeah.
of talking about sports?
Yeah. Yeah.
They're passionate about it. There are
Yeah.
people who talk about business all day. They are passionate about it. But until someone is able to pull these out of them, they might not be able to identify it on their own.
Yeah. Well, and I think, and I'm taking these notes because I'm thinking about if somebody, my question, I guess, to somebody would be, what is it that makes you smile? What topic that I could say, what word could I say? Like you said, sports, and there's a lot of people that were like, oh, yeah, if I could only fill in the blank, right? And we tend to be like, I want to be the quarterback, or I want to be the announcer, or I want to be the coach. They go to these, areas that probably aren't, you probably don't go from an engineer to a coach, right? I
Mhm.
mean, there's steps in between that it's like, well, learn about, like you said, find a book, learn about this, read about people that are in the sports world and see exactly, there may be engineering in the sports world. I'm sure there's tons of it. So I think that's really kind of a wise spot. Would cracking the life code book be a place to start? I mean, is there stuff in there if I wasn't sure about my passion? Do you have some direction in there for me?
Yeah, I did talk a lot about, identifying these passion areas, and exercises that you could do. I have self-reflection questions in the back of the book that can really help you narrow down to passion areas or things that you could be passionate about. I mean, yes, picking up Cracking the Life Code book can be a first step in that direction.
And thank you. That's awesome. I think, again, if you are trying to find your edge, we have to spend time at it. We all want the drive-through solution. We want to put it in the microwave for 60 seconds. I mean, it's really hard to make a salad because you got to cut up everything, you got to clean everything, you have to assemble this thing. It's so much easier to just put in whatever in the microwave for 90 seconds and you're eating, right? One's probably not as healthy as the other. But do you find people resist you when you ask them to spend time doing this stuff? Is that a pretty daunting task for some people?
I honestly think that's the biggest challenge.
Okay.
The time piece is the biggest challenge. I have a lot of people who are saying, well, how much money do I need to pay a life coach? I'm happy to pay. But
Yeah.
the
Do the work
point
for me
is,
too, then, will you?
exactly, I'll give you the money, just do it.
Do it.
And I tell them,
Tell me
I
what I'm
can't.
passionate about in 30 seconds or less, and I'll pay you 10 grand. Okay. I mean, that would be awesome. So,
Yeah, I wish that was possible. Yeah, we do need to invest a lot of time in this growth process. I often tell clients that if you jump up, you would most certainly come back down because it's a jump. However, if you grow up, you would stay up. So the growth process is the painful, time-taking process to move forward. And that's the process that I recommend. You can also jump if you want, but you would most certainly come back down after a jump. But when you
wow.
grow, you stay up.
That's really great. So jump up versus grow up. I mean, that's really well said. And it's okay if you're listening and you don't want to spend the time. That's okay. It's just that, he's sharing with you this opportunity to really have these 1% better days, and build this momentum. And I think I can't remember where I read it or learned about it, but they said how hard it is to get a freight train to start. But once it's going, it's so easy to keep it going. It's that initial thrust of energy needed to get that started. So the first thing I heard was invest some time to try to find out what you're passionate about. Think about what that platform is once you get determine that, and then find is the people part, are you finding people to come alongside you, coaches, friends, cheerleaders? I mean, is there a certain kind of person that we're looking for, Babs, in that spot?
Well, having clearly determined where you want to go, you want to find people that can help you get there. Those are the people we're looking for. People who have some role to play in helping you get to that destination, to that next level, either for your business or whatever area of your life you're working on.
Gotcha. Perfect. So do you mind me asking, what's your natural habitat? When you think about your place, just as a way of an example for somebody that might be totally not sure what their place is, what does yours look like? Just so that we can kind of learn that from you.
So I can tell you about that. As a child, I was an introverted kid, and I spent a lot of time alone and in my own head. I did not socialize a lot with other kids. I spent a lot of time isolated. But thankfully, my mom's a librarian, so she brought home a lot of books. And so I read a ton as a kid. So what I found out over time is I flourish when I'm in the space of inspiration. And so to this day, I surround myself, my entire home, with inspiration, whether that be inspirational quotes or some podcast, podcast, or whatever I'm watching, something that everything that surrounds my environment is inspirational. And when I'm in an inspiring environment, that's when I flourish. That's when I produce. And so I have learned to avoid areas that are not inspiring, places that are not inspiring, whether those are physical places or mental spaces. So I stay around inspirational areas, and that's my natural habitat. When I'm in an inspirational environment, either mentally or physically, I am my best.
Oh, that's great. Are you staying away from non-inspirational people then? If you find somebody that's not inspirational in your sphere of friends, I'll call it, or acquaintances, do you try to distance yourself from them? Or are you strong enough that not in a bad way, but like are you trying to affect them? Or do you just be like, hey, I just can't get myself into that? Do you have a preference there?
Well, honestly, I like to surround myself with people who are either better than I am or people who are on the same path as me. So we speak the same language. We believe the same things. We behave in similar ways. We have probably similar vision. So it's easier to just travel along with these people. And for people who are going in opposite direction, I try to just, navigate my way away from those people because it's hard enough to stay inspired. If you then pull someone along who isn't in that direction, chances are you might fall behind.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's so hard to do that for me, like if I find somebody that's really not, I mean, my company's called Positive Polarity. So I love the positivity. That's one of the 5 strength finders that I have, is being positive. But when I run into somebody that's not positive and they're always negative, there's kind of like, at first I'm like, man, run in the other direction, Dave, right? Then there's like something that's like, you should be able to point them or help them or share a word with them. And so I'm kind of like torn between, I want to surround myself, like you said, with people that are better than me. I want to surround myself with people that believe in what I believe in. What they, nothing better than having a cheerleader with your vision in mind. And they're like, man, tell me about how your next book's coming, or tell me how your podcasts are going, right? That's so helpful, as opposed to people that are like, podcasts, those things are a waste of time, I mean, or whatever, right? It's just like,
Yeah.
wow. So I appreciate your point of view on that, but I'm struggling with that because I don't know, like, I want to help, but yet I see the damage that it can do if I stay in that spot too long.
Yeah, I think you can offer help from a distance, frankly. I mean, I think access is the biggest gift we can ever give anybody. Giving someone access to my life
Sure.
or my physical environment, my home, I think it's the biggest gift I can give anyone. And so I can decide to be of help to someone, but from a distance, not to the point where I give them complete access to my mind, which is a very positive space.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I can definitely provide help. As a coach, I often just offer random people coaching sessions freely where possible, but they don't suddenly become my friends.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so hard. Sometimes it's hard to separate the two, and just want to, talk to somebody and learn about them. But boy, when it goes negative quick, it's really hard to kind of, ooh, what do I do? Because I don't like correcting people. Like, why are you so negative? Or look at your life. You got a ton of stuff going on. Great. Why, I don't want to do that, but I sure don't want to commiserate and go, oh my gosh, yeah, it's so bad here, whatever. And so I appreciate that. The biggest gift is access to yourself. How cool is that? So two questions, Babs, and I'm going to let you go. Number one, is tip of the week for somebody, whether it's something that we covered or, something that's on your heart for somebody listening right now. Just, something might be profound, might be simple, but somebody needs a tip from you. So what would that be?
Honestly, I would say embrace your authentic self, and I'll tell you why. We've said a lot about inspiration and positivity and where we need to be with our purpose. We've talked about passion and all of those. And someone might be thinking, well, it sounds like these guys are having a conversation about the perfect life. My life is not perfect.
Right.
They're saying, well, maybe these guys don't even have a bad day. Maybe they have it all figured out,
Yeah.
and so they can talk about all of these beautiful things like life is full of roses. Um,
No, it's
see,
great. Yeah.
here's the truth. I like to say sometimes that I probably have more bad days than the average individual, frankly. So my point is, and the tip is, it takes it takes highlights and shadows to create a perfect image. In other words, no life is 100% highlights, and your life should not be 100% shadows either. So
Mm.
you should embrace your highlights as much as you would your shadows. In other words, when you meet people and you talk to them for the first time, they introduce themselves and they talk a lot about their positive sides. Very often, we avoid our scars, we avoid our failures, we avoid our weaknesses and our blind spots. We don't want to talk about those. We are sometimes even ashamed of those areas of our lives because
Yeah.
probably society would, judge you for some weaknesses and downfall and scars that you have. But I like to say that you do not become your authentic self until you've embraced both the bright spots and the dark spots. That's exactly what made you who you are. Those two areas of your life made you the unique person that you are. So rather than being ashamed of past failures or being ashamed of the scars that you've suffered from, really maybe bad mistakes or wrong decisions in the past, I would wear them as a badge of honor. These are some of the experiences that I've lived through, and they made me who I am today. So you can embrace both your positive sides, your strengths, your attributes, your charisma and intelligence, and all of those. But then
Yeah.
you can also embrace your scars and your failures and your past mistakes. All together, you become a full authentic person.
Wow, that's really powerful. It's super easy to embrace my strengths, Babs. It's not that easy to embrace and wear them as a badge, for the weakness part. So I appreciate that you shared that. That was for me. So no one else listened to that. That's just for me. Okay. You shared that just for me. And as we land today, I guess my other question is for people that are listening that this did strike a chord with. We always tell people don't just jump into your next podcast or don't just put this down and go about your next activity. Sit with it for a minute. And if it really resonates, then reach out. So if somebody did, Babs, want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to connect with you so that they could have a discussion about this at length with you?
Well, we are always available at crackinthelifecode.com. You can
Okay,
send us an email at help@crackinthelifecode.com.
perfect. That's awesome. And you know what? Seriously, for the people listening, if you are struggling with anything that we talked about, why do it yourself? Why go through this yourself? You talked about a community. How do you join that community that you were talking about? Is that part of your book and all that, or how does that work?
Yeah, you typically just send us an email, help@crackinthelifecode.com. We have a few introductory sessions and we determine next steps forward.
Awesome. That is so cool. Thank you again, Babs, so much for hanging out with us. I'm excited to work on my mindset because then that's going to shape my habits and then that's going to shape my behaviors. And that's going to be my edge, because then when somebody says, Dave, what's your edge? Boom, I'm going to know exactly what it is, rather than that deer in the headlights look like I have no clue what you're talking about. So thank you so much for hanging out and investing this time, and can't wait to keep learning from you, and appreciate all you're doing.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the work you're doing on the podcast. Really great work.